All right, time to be a little bit transparent. Um, a few years ago, I had someone in a movie theater kicking the back of my seat over and over and over, and during a movie, obviously, and it was pretty annoying. Eventually, I turned around and said something, and I was a little rude. Turned out they went to my kid's school. That was just great. But it was kind of embarrassing, and I didn't feel like it was my best moment. I wasn't over the top, but a little bit rude. Um, I got to basically relive that sometime later, and I remembered how I acted the first time, and so I kind of handled it a little bit better. And then it happened again, and I handled it a little bit better. So it's kind of the lesson a little bit. So recently, I've been how do I say this sort of subtly? I attended a okay, so I've gone to some men's groups. Let's put it that way. I've gone to some men's life groups. Um, and I've kind of been not treated great a couple times with some long story stuff. Um, I realized recently by going to another men's life group where a guy again was pretty offensive to me. It's just like what is this like? This is this like someone kicking the back of my chair again. Like I'm not handling these things well, so I'm getting to relive them. And whether God's targeting me for that or whether it's just circumstances, I'm certainly getting to learn it. And so, what I have to do is really learn to not be offended. I really have to learn to be okay with people not acting great and even hurting me or maybe offending me or whatever, and figuring out a way to get God involved in that. And I don't have a great strategy for that at this time. But that's the issue. I think the what I'm going to do is just talk to God about it. That's where I land on these things usually is, bring it to God and just say, hey, I'm clearly not handling this well. This fresh incident of a guy, just being a jerk. This latest one kind of apologized. So I'm trying to be okay with it. It's kind of one thing to forgive people. It's another thing to have it swirl around in your head. And then what do you do with it? You kind of have to forgive again. It's just goofy, it is what it is. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now is learning how to process the people of life. And by the way, I'll just say it. I've kind of not gone to a life group for years after the last time I had two people sort of jump on me in front of the whole group really unfairly. Not looking for any sympathy. I'm just telling you that was pretty impactful to me to the point where I stopped going to life groups. And so I went to this one last night, and it happened again a little bit. And so the lesson, so I guess I did say something to the Lord about it. And I instantly, when I asked him about it or I told him about it or something, he reminded me of the kicking of the back of the chair. Essentially, learning, sometimes in life you have to take another lap to learn things, And so I guess by me remembering, hey, I reacted like a jerk when someone a teenager kicked the back of my chair in that movie theater. I want to make sure that I process someone treating me poorly in a life group. I want to process that better, and I want to be okay, and I want to be forgiving. And for me, these conceptions of what would Jesus do doesn't really help me, right? Because then what I have to do is I have to guess what Jesus would do, and I have to like I have to kind of will myself. I have to effort, do that in effort, and that doesn't really work for me. But what does work, excuse me, what does work for me a lot is having an open and frank and vulnerable and trusting conversation with God about any of these kinds of things. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do it tonight. So if you've been hurt or offended, call it what you want. That's my recommendation to you is you may notice in your life that you've kind of done that. You've been there, done that a few times. Maybe there's a certain pattern that you keep repeating. I guess I would encourage you to do what I'm going to do, which is say, hey, God, I have a pattern of not handling this conflict well, and I ask you to get involved in my pattern. So that's my tip for what I'm going to do anyway.